My name is Donna Ainsworth. I'm 32 years old. And 6 days before my wedding, I discovered my mother accepted $40,000 from another family to stop me from marrying the man I loved. She didn't tell me. She didn't tell my father. She took the money quietly, wrote a speech for my dad to read at the altar, and invited the other man to sit in the third row. 10 minutes before the ceremony, my maid of honor looked at me and whispered, "Don't go out there." I thought someone had died. Instead, I peeked through the bridal suite doorway and saw my entire family standing near the altar like they were preparing for an intervention. Microphone, letter, phone camera already recording. Everything staged carefully. Like humiliation required organization. What they planned next was supposed to break me publicly. It didn't. I grew up outside Knoxville, Tennessee, in a split-level house with faded shutters and a rusted swing set nobody ever removed. 3 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. Thin walls. The kind of home where everybody knew everybody's business before dinner. My father, Richard Ainsworth, worked for the Postal Service for 31 years. Same route. Same truck. Same quiet routine every morning before sunrise. My mother, Janet, managed our family the way small-town politicians manage local governments. Control first. Warmth second. Everything in our house orbited her moods. My younger sister Tessa arrived when I was 5. And overnight, the rules changed. I became the dependable one. The useful daughter. The child expected to absorb inconvenience silently. At 14, I cooked Thanksgiving side dishes while Mom drank wine and supervised. At 16, I drove my grandmother to dialysis twice a week because Mom said hospital chairs hurt her back. At 17, I babysat Tessa every Friday night so my parents could reconnect. My mother's favorite phrase echoed through my childhood constantly. "You're the big sister. Set the example." Translation: do more. Need less. I paid my own tuition through Pellissippi State working morning shifts at a cafe off Kingston Pike. Transferred to the University of Tennessee. Graduated with a paralegal studies degree and exactly 0 financial help from anyone inside my childhood home. Today, I work at Brennan and Associates downtown. Family law. Custody battles. Asset division. Protection orders. I spend my days organizing evidence for strangers trying to survive people who once claimed to love them. Funny, honestly. Because I didn't realize for years I was practicing for my own family. 2 years before the wedding, I bought my townhouse. Tiny place. Brick exterior. Narrow kitchen. 1 extra bedroom I kept promising myself I'd renovate eventually. I paid for it entirely myself. No cosigner. No down payment gift. No rescue. And somehow, my success didn't impress my mother. It irritated her. Because in my family, competence was rewarded with more responsibility. Never appreciation. If you were dependable, people simply depended on you harder. Meanwhile, Tessa lived in an apartment Mom paid for completely. She called herself a content creator. Mostly she filmed brunches and skincare routines for 3,200 Instagram followers. Mom bought her a car for her 25th birthday. When I turned 25, my mother gave me a crock pot and asked if I could help cover Thanksgiving groceries. And my father? Richard Ainsworth existed like wallpaper inside our home. Always present. Rarely involved. Whenever conflict appeared, he said the same 4 words. Listen to your mother. Then returned to his newspaper. I normalized all of it for 32 years. Told myself every family had roles. Every eldest daughter carried extra weight. Then I met Marcus. And suddenly, everything I called normal started looking distorted. Marcus Thompson was 34 when we met. Structural engineer. Quiet in the kind of way that makes people lean closer instead of losing interest. We met at a Knoxville area Urban League fundraiser. He asked me one question about my work. And listened to the answer for 40 straight minutes. No interruption. No checking his phone. No waiting for his turn to speak. Just attention. Real attention. Honestly, that alone almost felt romantic. Because people raised in emotionally loud families become shocked by calm kindness. The first Thanksgiving I brought him home. He arrived carrying sunflowers for my mother and a bottle of wine for my father. Pressed shirt. Polished shoes. Nervous smile. My mother opened the door. Looked him over slowly. And smiled the kind of smile people use when pretending not to judge someone openly. He seems nice, she said. That was it. Not welcome. Not tell me about yourself. Just. He seems nice. Cold politeness disguised as civility. During dinner, Tessa glanced across the table and laughed. He's not what I imagined for you, sis. Marcus smiled politely anyway. My father watched football from the den with the volume turned high enough to avoid conversation. Later that night, after Marcus left, my mother cornered me in the hallway beside the laundry room. Are you sure about him? Her voice lowered carefully. You could do better, Donna. She never explained what better meant. She didn't need to. The implication sat there clearly enough. Marcus rented an apartment. His mother raised him alone. No family money. No country club background. No carefully curated pedigree. My mother viewed love like an investment portfolio. And Marcus didn't match her preferred assets. The next 4 years unfolded slowly. Like cracks spreading through glass. Year 1. Mom forgot to invite Marcus to Christmas dinner. Claimed she thought it was family only. Year 2. She arranged a neighborhood barbecue and intentionally seated me beside Derek Whitmore. Carol Whitmore's son. Freshly returned from Atlanta. Wealthy. Bland. Exactly the kind of man my mother could explain proudly to her friends. Marcus stood 6 feet away holding grilled corn while my mother introduced Derek like a showroom model. Year 3. She stopped using Marcus's name completely. Called him your friend. Every time. When Marcus phoned to wish her happy birthday, she let it ring until voicemail. And through all of it, Marcus never insulted my family once. Not once. That restraint cost him something. I could see it every time we drove home from Sunday dinners. The way he exhaled quietly after pulling into our driveway. The way his shoulders relaxed only once the house disappeared behind us. One night, after another exhausting family dinner, my mother looked directly at me and said, "You've changed since meeting him." Interesting sentence. Because controlling people always describe independence as corruption. I didn't realize then. My mother had already started planning something far worse than disapproval. Real planning. Phone calls. Money transfers. Quiet agreements between families. And by the time I discovered it, the price on my future had already been negotiated. Marcus proposed beside the Tennessee River at sunset. No photographers hiding in bushes. No flash mob. No violinists emerging dramatically from nearby trees. Just us. A quiet walking trail near downtown Knoxville where we had our first date 4 years earlier. The river looked silver beneath the evening light. Boats drifting slowly in the distance. Marcus sat beside me on the bench for almost 10 minutes before speaking. Not because he was uncertain. Because he wanted the moment to feel real. That was Marcus. Nothing performative. Nothing borrowed from movies. Just sincerity. Finally, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and smiled nervously. Donna. I started crying before he finished the sentence. Not graceful crying either. The kind where breathing becomes unreliable. I said yes halfway through his proposal. Marcus laughed. Then kissed my forehead before sliding the ring onto my finger. Simple diamond. Elegant. Exactly my taste. We stayed beside the river another hour afterward, talking quietly about wedding venues and future plans and whether we'd eventually want children. And for a few beautiful hours, I believed happiness could simply exist without punishment attached to it. Then I called my mother. Janet Ainsworth answered on the second ring. I told her the news smiling. Excited. Waiting for the reaction daughters are trained to expect. Instead, 3 full seconds of silence. Then, well, pause. I hope you've thought this through. That was it. No congratulations. No excitement. Just the refrigerator humming faintly in the background on her end of the line. Like even appliances felt more emotionally involved than she did. Tessa called an hour later. Are you serious? Not happy. Offended. Wow. You're getting married before me? She asked about the venue budget before asking whether I was happy. Then immediately complained about possible bridesmaid dress colors. My father offered exactly 6 seconds of warmth. Congratulations, sweetheart. Then passed the phone back to my mother. That should have warned me. Honestly. Everything after that should have warned me. 3 weeks later, Mom called unexpectedly. And for the first time in years, her voice sounded soft. Careful. Almost loving. Donna, she said gently. I want to help with the wedding. I sat upright immediately. What? I've been saving for years, she continued. I can contribute $20,000. I nearly cried right there on the couch. Because my mother had never offered financial help before. Not for college. Not for my car. Not when I lived off ramen at 22 trying to pay rent. And suddenly, out of nowhere, $20,000. Mom, are you serious? Of course I am, she replied warmly. You're my daughter. That sentence alone almost broke me. Because children raised on emotional scarcity become devastated by tiny pieces of affection. I wanted desperately to believe this meant something. That my mother had finally accepted Marcus. Finally saw me. Finally wanted peace instead of control. Marcus didn't trust it. Not fully. That night while we sat together on the couch, he listened quietly while I talked about the offer. Then set his water glass down carefully and said, Your mom's never offered you money before. I frowned slightly. So just, be careful. I defended her immediately. Maybe she's trying. Maybe this is her way of apologizing. Marcus nodded slowly. But I noticed something. He didn't look relieved. He looked worried. I understand now. Love teaches people to notice danger before you do. Within 2 weeks, my mother inserted herself into every part of wedding planning. Guest lists. Flowers. Seating charts. Cake consultations. She moved through the process like someone organizing a political fundraiser instead of a marriage ceremony. 30 new guests appeared suddenly on the spreadsheet. People Marcus and I had never met. When I questioned it, Mom waved dismissively. Family friends. It would be rude not to invite them. I was exhausted already from work deadlines and vendor calls and trying to coordinate 200 people. So I stopped fighting every battle. Big mistake. One evening, while reviewing seating assignments, I noticed a name near the front rows. Derek Whitmore. Plus guest. Row 3. Close to the altar. I called my mother immediately. Why is Derek sitting near the front? Carol's knees are bad, Mom replied instantly. She needs aisle access. It made absolutely no sense. But at that point, nothing about wedding planning made sense anymore. Meanwhile, Tessa became increasingly unbearable. She rejected her bridesmaid dress because the dusty rose color washed her out. So I changed the palette completely. Not because she deserved it. Because peace had become reflexive for me. That's the problem with growing up around manipulation. You mistake surrender for maturity. 6 weeks before the wedding, everything was locked in. Venue deposits paid. Catering finalized. 200 guests confirmed. No turning back without losing thousands of dollars. Then 6 days before the ceremony, my phone buzzed at 11:03 p.m. Rachel. My maid of honor. Rachel never calls late unless something is wrong. I answered immediately. Hey. We need to talk. Her voice sounded tight. Controlled. I'm coming over. 15 minutes later. Rachel sat on my kitchen floor still wearing her coat. Shoes on. Phone clutched tightly in both hands. The way people hold evidence in crime shows. Rachel Kim had been my best friend since college. Marcus's cousin too. Which meant she loved both of us enough to tell ugly truths immediately. Without cushioning. She turned her phone over slowly. I need you to read this. Screenshot. Group chat. Carol Whitmore's nail salon thread. Wrong recipient. The message read. Is everything ready for Saturday? Derek is nervous. I told him once the intervention works, Donna will come around. The $40,000 was worth every penny. I read it twice. Then a third time. Because some sentences feel impossible even while staring directly at them. $40,000. Not 20. 40. Rachel scrolled downward silently. Another screenshot. My mother replying. Don't worry. Once Richard reads the speech, Donna won't have a choice. She won't humiliate herself in front of 200 people. The room went completely still. Not silent. Heavy. Like gravity changed shape suddenly. I sat on my kitchen floor for 20 straight minutes staring at the tile. No crying yet. Just shock rearranging my understanding of my entire family. My mother accepted money? From another woman? To sabotage my marriage publicly. And my father didn't even know he was part of it. I finally called Marcus. He arrived 14 minutes later. Didn't ask questions immediately. Just sat beside me quietly while I cried hard enough to lose language temporarily. Then I told him everything. The screenshots. The money. The speech. The intervention. Marcus read the messages carefully. Set the phone down. And said the last thing I expected. We're not canceling the wedding. I looked up. What? His jaw tightened slightly. But his voice stayed calm. This is our day. They don't get to steal it. That sentence changed everything. Because for the first time in my life, someone stood beside me without asking me to compromise first. We sat at the kitchen table until almost 1 a.m. building a plan. No confrontation beforehand. No warning my mother. No dramatic cancellation. We would let the intervention happen. Then answer it publicly. With facts. Evidence. truth. And honestly, I was uniquely qualified for that part. I organize evidence for a living. So for the next 3 days, I built a case against my own family. Venmo records, screenshots, guest list comparisons, transaction dates. Everything tabbed chronologically inside a manila envelope. Rachel carried it afterward like state secrets. Meanwhile, I attended cake tastings beside my mother pretending nothing was wrong. Smiled during rehearsal brunches. Nodded through flower consultations. Every phone call from mom sounded cheerful. Every "I'm so excited for Saturday" felt like acid in my ears. And somehow, the pretending became harder than the betrayal itself. Because once you see manipulation clearly, every performance around it becomes unbearable. The night before the wedding, I circled Derek Whitmore's name on the seating chart using a red pen. Row 3. Seat 7. And for the first time since childhood, I stopped feeling afraid of disappointing my family. Instead, I wondered how disappointed they were about to become in me. Wedding mornings are supposed to feel magical. At least that's what magazines promise. Champagne. Laughter. Matching robes. Soft music playing while makeup artists create calm from chaos. Mine felt like waiting for a courtroom hearing. I woke up at 4:47 a.m. Heart already racing. No alarm needed. The bridal suite overlooked the Smoky Mountains just beyond Knoxville. Fog drifted low across the hills. Everything outside looked peaceful. Inside, I felt like a wire pulled too tight. Rachel slept curled beneath an extra blanket on the couch beside the window. Still clutching her phone even unconscious. Evidence guardian until the end. Marcus texted me at 6:02. Still us? 3 words. Simple. Terrified. I smiled despite everything. Always. The ceremony venue sat on a vineyard estate outside town. White chairs arranged beneath an oak canopy. String quartet warming up softly near the aisle. Candles inside glass lanterns lining the pathways. My mother arrived at 8:30 sharp wearing pale blue silk and the expression of someone hosting a charity gala in her honor. She kissed my cheek lightly. You look beautiful. Then immediately started rearranging floral placements without asking anyone. Control disguised as helpfulness. Classic Janet Ainsworth. Tessa showed up 40 minutes late. Complained about traffic. Complained about humidity. Complained about her makeup artist. Meanwhile, I sat in the bridal chair wondering whether my father already knew he'd been weaponized. At 11:15, I found him alone near the reception hall carrying folded note cards. My stomach dropped instantly. The speech. Dad smiled weakly when he saw me. Nervous, he asked. Interesting question. Considering he was unknowingly holding emotional explosives. I stepped closer carefully. What's that? He looked down at the cards. Oh. Your mother helped me write something. Of course she did. I wanted desperately to ask him directly. Do you know what she's planning? But then I looked at his face. Tired eyes. Pressed suit. Hands trembling slightly. And suddenly, I realized something painful. My father wasn't part of the conspiracy. He was another tool inside it. People mistake passivity for innocence constantly. They aren't the same thing. At 12:42, guests began arriving. Women in pastel dresses. Men adjusting ties near the vineyard entrance. Servers carrying trays of champagne. And there, exactly where the seating chart placed him, sat Derek Whitmore. Row 3. Navy suit. Hair too carefully styled. Smiling nervously every time my mother glanced his direction. like a man waiting to receive property promised to him. I nearly lost control right there. Rachel grabbed my wrist immediately. Not yet. Her voice low. Steady. Let them bury themselves first. At 1:10. The ceremony coordinator knocked softly on the bridal suite door. 10 minutes. My pulse hammered instantly. Outside. String quartet music drifted across the vineyard. Guests standing. Programs rustling in the wind. And somewhere beyond those walls, my mother was preparing to destroy my marriage publicly. Then Rachel peeked through the doorway toward the ceremony space. And froze. Immediately. Oh, Rachel turned back toward me slowly. Face pale. They're setting it up now. My stomach dropped hard enough to hurt physically. What do you mean? There's a microphone at the altar. Pause. Your mom handed your dad the speech. Everything inside me went cold instantly. Not fear anymore. Clarity. The kind that arrives right before impact. I stood slowly from the bridal chair. Smoothed invisible wrinkles from my dress. Adjusted my veil carefully. Then looked at Rachel. Bring the folder. Her eyes sharpened immediately. No hesitation. Okay. The ceremony music shifted outside. Guests settling into seats. Wind moving softly through vineyard leaves. And somewhere beneath all of it, my mother believed she had already won. I walked toward the chapel doors with my father waiting near the entrance. Richard Ainsworth looked terrified. Not manipulative terrified. Confused terrified. Like his instincts were warning him something was wrong even if he didn't fully understand what. He held the folded speech cards tightly in one hand. I looked down at them briefly. Then up at him. Dad. My voice softer than expected. Did you read it? He blinked once. What? The speech. Long pause. Then quietly. Your mother said it would help. That answer told me everything. No. He hadn't read it. He trusted her enough not to. 31 years of surrender compressed into one sentence. I touched his arm gently. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt sorry for him more than angry. Because weak people don't only fail others. Eventually, they destroy themselves too. The ceremony began. Music swelling softly through the vineyard. White chairs filled with 200 guests smiling toward the aisle. Marcus waiting beneath the oak canopy in a dark charcoal suit. Calm. Steady. The second he saw me, everything in his face softened. And suddenly, I remembered why I was there. Not for my mother. Not for appearances. Not for family approval. For us. Dad walked me halfway down the aisle before the officiant raised a hand gently. Before we begin, he announced warmly. The bride's family has prepared a few words. There it was. Guests smiled politely. Assuming sentiment. Assuming love. My mother stood slowly from the front row. Composed. Elegant. Completely certain of herself. She nodded toward my father. Richard unfolded the speech papers shakily. Then cleared his throat. My daughter Donna. His voice trembled immediately. Not emotion. Instinct. Like his body already understood betrayal before his brain caught up. He kept reading. Sometimes the people we love make choices out of loneliness. Murmurs moved softly through the crowd. Marcus frowned slightly beside the altar. I saw the exact moment confusion reached him. Dad continued. And before Donna enters a marriage she may regret. His voice slowed. Eyes narrowing slightly as he finally processed the words in real time. We believe she deserves one final chance to reconsider. Silence spread across the vineyard instantly. Heavy. Wrong. Guests exchanging uncomfortable glances. And then, my mother stood, smiling carefully, like a politician preparing a public endorsement. Derek? She turned toward row 3. And Derek Whitmore actually stood up. Straightening his jacket nervously while 200 people stared in total confusion. My mother gestured toward him proudly. This man has loved Donna for years. I heard someone gasp behind the 3rd row. Another guest whispered. What is happening? My father lowered the speech pages slowly, finally understanding. And the look on his face. God. Pure horror. Because in that moment, he realized he had been tricked into humiliating his own daughter publicly. Mom kept talking anyway. Completely committed now. Donna deserves stability. Shared values. A future built with the right kind of family. There it was. The real message underneath 4 years of disapproval. Marcus wasn't wrong because of who he was. He was wrong because my mother never considered him equal enough. Marcus stood perfectly still beside the altar. Hands clenched tightly behind his back. Not angry. Controlled. Which honestly made the moment even more devastating. Because good men don't explode publicly. They absorb humiliation quietly first. My mother turned toward me smiling gently. Like she was rescuing me. Sweetheart, she said softly. You don't have to go through with this. That sentence finally broke the illusion completely. Not because it shocked me. Because she genuinely believed she was helping. Control had become love in her mind so completely. She couldn't separate them anymore. I stepped forward slowly. Reached for the microphone. And my mother, still confident, handed it to me willingly. Big mistake. I looked out across the vineyard. 200 faces. Confused relatives. Co-workers. Neighbors. Friends. And then, I opened the manila folder. The entire vineyard went silent. Since we're sharing family speeches publicly today, I pulled out the screenshots carefully. I think everyone deserves the full version. My mother's face changed immediately. Not fear yet. Recognition. I held up the first printed message. 3 days ago, my maid of honor accidentally received screenshots from Carol Whitmore's group chat. I read aloud calmly. The $40,000 was worth every penny. Gasps rippled through the crowd instantly. My mother went white. Actually white. I continued. Once Richard reads the speech, Donna won't have a choice. Now people were turning toward my mother openly. No confusion anymore. Judgment. My father stared at Janet slowly. Like he no longer recognized the woman beside him. I looked directly at Derek. Did you know she paid my mother to sabotage my wedding? Derek froze completely. Then whispered. My mother said you needed convincing. The vineyard exploded into murmurs. Because somehow, that answer made everything even worse. My mother grabbed my arm suddenly. Donna, stop this right now. Interesting. Not. I'm sorry. Not. This got out of hand. Control first. Always. I stepped back gently. No. Then I looked toward my father. And for the first time in my life, I watched him choose something other than obedience. Richard turned toward my mother slowly. Voice shaking. You used me. Janet blinked rapidly. Richard. You used me to hurt our daughter. Silence. Total silence. Because weak men become dangerous once they finally see the truth clearly. My mother's composure cracked instantly. I was trying to save her. There it is, I whispered. And suddenly, everything became visible at once. The money. The manipulation. The speeches. The years of interference. None of it came from love. It came from ownership. My mother didn't want a happy daughter. She wanted a manageable one. Marcus stepped forward then. Quietly. Steady as ever. He reached for my hand gently. And somehow, that small gesture stabilized the entire world again. I looked at the guests. Then smiled softly. Well, I'd still like to marry him. For 1 second? Nobody reacted. Then Rachel started clapping. Loudly. Aggressively. Marcus's mother joined immediately. Then my coworkers. Then half the vineyard. Applause erupted through the ceremony space while my mother stood frozen beside the front row watching control disappear publicly for the first time in her life. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly. Then smiled nervously. Should we continue? Marcus laughed softly beside me. First real laugh all day. Yes, he answered. We should. And so we did. Right there beneath the oak trees. With screenshots still scattered across the altar table. I married the man my mother tried to erase. The vows felt different afterward. More honest. More earned. Because nothing reveals love faster than watching someone stay beside you during humiliation. After the ceremony, my father approached me near the reception barn. Tie loosened. Eyes red. I didn't know, he whispered immediately. I believed him. That almost hurt more. Because ignorance isn't innocence when you spend 30 years refusing to ask questions. He looked toward my mother standing alone near the parking area. Small now. Disconnected. And quietly said. I should have listened to you more. Simple sentence. 32 years late. But true. And sometimes truth arriving late still changes people. I looked at Marcus laughing beside the dance floor with Rachel and his cousins. Then back at my father. You should have listened to yourself more too. That landed. Hard. Because people raised around controlling personalities lose themselves gradually. One compromise at a time. One silence at a time. My father started crying quietly right there beside the reception lights. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just grief finally escaping somewhere safe. And honestly, I think that was the first truthful moment of his entire adult life. My mother left before cake was served. No goodbye. No apology. Just headlights disappearing down the vineyard road alone. Tessa followed 20 minutes later after realizing nobody was comforting her. And standing there beneath string lights and October air? I realized something extraordinary. The wedding my mother tried to destroy became the first day of my actual freedom. Because once people expose themselves publicly, you finally stop wasting energy explaining their behavior privately. And honestly, that felt better than revenge ever could.